Okay.
This time we'll call the meeting to order. Is there anyone that would offer an invocation?
Father, we're grateful for another day, for strength that you promised, for bread for the table, for clothes, for all that you're doing that we can't see. We just ask you to be glorified by all that's said and done today. Continue to order our steps as we bring glory to you in every way. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are a couple changes since it was published last Friday. We are adding the action item development agreement for Central Plains Economy, and then we'll also be adding an executive session for non-elected personnel.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
So moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Wentz to approve the agenda as amended. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to public comments. This is the time when citizens are encouraged to speak publicly. We request that you state your name and address, speak respectfully, and limit your comment to 3 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to speak?
You want me to stand here? Go ahead and make yours.
Go ahead, the podium.
Oh, 3 minutes.
Well, I'll let you know. How about that?
That will
All
work.
right, great.
Okay, first of all, hello, and I'd like to thank everybody for taking their time to hear me tonight to discuss a lot of things that 2020 has taken a lot from us, some like business wise. I'm with the Concordia High Banks, and we were just kind of wondering, y'all don't mind if I just read from this? I'm nervous. So, okay. We understand the importance of the Cloud County Ambulance and the rescue crew, and that they play an extremely important role in the community, not just for businesses, but for personal individuals also. And we appreciate them all. And then at Concordia High Banks, again, we took a toll along with many others during the 2020 with the pandemic. And we have an outstanding bill right at the moment with them that we are trying to work with on, doing that. Because our first season was back in 2019 when we first took over the Concordia High Banks. And that was the tough year at first. Mother Nature was kind of against us, and that plays a part in any business wise. The second year of the pandemic took a lot of us out there. We started our season we started in June, so we usually start in April. And we just held our 2020 banquet, and we brought in quite a bit of drivers. We've got drivers from a lot of different states, and so we had the revenue coming in throughout the year, and then also with the banquet, staying at the hotels and things like that. And we were just kind of wondering on how they work, if they do any kind of reduced for standbys for EMTs and ambulance. I visited with the Cloud County Fair Board. They told me to come here and meet with y'all, so. And that's about all I have. Thanks again, you guys.
Thank you.
And we know that the standbys are required as part of the racing requirements, right?
Correct.
And if I'm not mistaken, there's been some conversations that you've been able to have with Amy and Chief Foss to try to coordinate some sort of arrangement moving forward. And the opportunity then would be for us to see if there are any other options that we may be able to pursue to help.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments to make? Seeing none, we'll move on to the action agenda. First up is the minutes of the March 3rd, 2021 meeting.
Move to approve the minutes from March 3rd, 2021.
So been moved by Commissioner Hutchinson and seconded by Commissioner Belden to approve the minutes of the March 3rd, 2021 meeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to appropriation ordinance number 5.
I move that we approve appropriation ordinance number 5.
Second.
So moved by Commissioner Wentz and seconded by Commissioner Hash to approve appropriation ordinance number 5. Is there any further discussion?
I have a little bit of discussion. Is there any possibility, like on the card services, that we can actually break that down into what those categories are instead of just employee credit cards? It doesn't say if it's for meals or if it's for gas, or is there a way that we can do that and show that on there easily?
We have a spreadsheet we can do.
Okay, I just thought it might be a bit more transparent.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to the Frank Carlson Library Board appointment.
I don't see Denise here. Chuck, are you able to visit a little bit on that since you're on the board?
Sure. So as part of the letter that went out to the commissioners, we are looking to reappoint Jameson Gross to continue on, and as one of the members who has served often, Janice Swinson, she's been there as long as she is able to. We try to change it to where she can continue on. She'd really like to. That's just not in it's out of our power. So it was recommended that Laura Watson be appointed. I think anybody that knows Mrs. Watson, Laura Watson, knows that she's a great candidate for the library board. I think would be a great asset. So the library board as a whole had no reservation in recommending Jameson continue on, as well as recommending Laura for the library board.
I would move to appoint Jameson Gross and Laura Watson to the library board.
So moved by Commissioner Wentz, second by Commissioner Belden to approve Jameson Gross and appoint Jameson Gross and Laura Watson to the Frank Carlson Library Board. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to the development agreement for Central Plains Agronomy.
As you get old, you need these things, and I didn't realize how bad I needed them. I'm here on behalf of Cloud Corp and Central Plains Agronomy to present a development agreement to the City Commission for approval. The development agreement that you received lays out information on exactly what Central Plains Agronomy is, which it is an agriculture wholesale retail business that is expanding. It's currently here in Concordia, and it's expanding its wholesale and retail company out to North Development. With that, in this agreement, we would like to lay out that Central Plains Agronomy's commitment would be at their expense to purchase Lot B of Block 1 of the North Development site, to fully cover their costs of building engineering, soil boring, site preparation, driveways and parking, the building construction, and the building size will be approximately 10,000 square feet. They will start business operations at the site in Concordia sometime during the year of 2021, and they will employ approximately 8 people. They will also cover all operational costs of the building and property maintenance of the site, including their payroll, utilities, property taxes, insurance, etc., and promptly pay their local property taxes that are due annually. The estimated total cost for Central Plains Agronomy's investment is about $500,000. We would ask the city commitment to Central Plains Agronomy at the city's expense to waive the cost of the water and sewer taps and fully cover the cost of paving the site entrance portion located on the public right of way. That is an estimated in-kind total cost to the city of about $16,000. To that, over a 5-year period, in order for this to become an in-kind grant to Central Plains Agronomy, Central Plains Agronomy will accomplish the following, and that's a complete construction of the development and start their business operations in 2021, be current on all their property tax payments due annually, have sustainability in providing agriculture, wholesale, retail products and services in North Central Kansas during this 5-year period, and have sustainability in employing approximately 8 full-time people with an average wage of at least $15 an hour. Any questions on the presented development agreement? I would like to ask that the city commission move to accept the development agreement as presented between them and Central Plains Agronomy LLC.
And I would add that we have reviewed this agreement, Justin's looked it over, and from the city's perspective, we feel that our interests are protected and we feel that it's a solid agreement.
It's the same type of agreement we've had before, right?
Yes.
Very similar to what we discussed next link. Very, very
Yes.
similar to that.
The only type of tax help they would get would be neighborhood revitalization, right? There's no, they can't go for like a,
Like a tax abatement or
Yeah.
anything? Correct.
extra ones.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the only type of tax help they would be able to get with their property taxes is the neighborhood revitalization.
Still adding to the property tax value with the investment of it. Significant.
That'd be very good. With that, I would move to approve the development agreement with Central Plains Agronomy LLC.
Second.
So moved by Commissioner Hutchinson and seconded by Commissioner Wentz to approve the development agreement with Central Plains Agronomy LLC. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
I just want to say that I'm very pleased with the number of businesses that we've been able to open with your assistance during a pandemic.
Thank you. I have to say kudos to the entrepreneurs that are risking it, especially during a time as a pandemic, to set themselves out there and invest in Concordia, in Clark County as a whole, because it is a big risk, and just encourage the public to really step inside those businesses, look around and try to shop local as much as possible, because they're the ones that are donating to the Little League teams, and they're the ones that are donating to the choir, into the band, to our local athletic teams, and they're really risking it all, and it shows a lot of their compassion to want to see the good for Concordia and Clark County. So thank you. I'll pass that along to them for sure. Can I just leave this with you and I can get it tomorrow? Okay.
Did you get vote?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't say, I'm not sure. Somebody should say something.
It's how efficient of a
We asked about
meeting I
taxes and
operate.
then I just like. Sorry, I apologize.
Moving on to ordinance 2021-3175, officially repealing the mask mandate.
We just figured that in order to remove this ordinance from our code book, we did need to repeal it rather than just making the motion as at last meeting. So this is kind of a formality just to remove that from our code at the next time we do an update.
And if we need to put it back in, we'd have to pass an ordinance again to do it, so it's not really any extra steps by doing this. If we end up having to put it back in, it's not any extra steps to take it out, it's just a crazy red tape process that we follow.
You know where the county stands now.
They have repealed their ordinance.
Yeah, no, but I mean, are we in the green zone, yellow?
You know, I did not look at those numbers today before I came to the news. I can't speak offhand. I know I did see on MZK today that we had our first positive case in the last 12 days. So we're actually doing pretty well to go that long without a case. I think we're doing pretty well, but I don't have the exact numbers.
Also, you know, it's wild how things move. I think that certainly taught us a lot, but when we did vote on this on March 3rd, we weren't sure when phase 3, phase 4 would happen, and here within the last few days, we were informed that it'd be happening Monday. So I think it really speaks to the fluidity of it. And my question was, would it be beneficial to maintain this in place if we needed to re-engage it at some point in the future? But after having some conversation, that it's no more or less effort to engage a new ordinance as opposed to re-engaging an old ordinance. So we're not necessarily saving ourselves any time. So,
I move to approve ordinance 2021-3175.
it's been moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Belden to approve ordinance 2021-3175. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to ordinance 2021-3176, the rezoning of 322 West Fifth Street.
Mayor Commissioner, this ordinance is for rezoning a property on West Fifth that was previously rezoned to commercial for a small commercial operation, and then that went away, and now they're trying to resell, and everybody wants to live in it. So we're going to move on back to residential. We've had the planning commission public hearing. It was unanimous. There's no protests, petitions involved, and as the ordinance says, your options are in front of you. I'll stand for any questions.
I have a question, Bruno. Probably should have asked it before, but when you do the zoning map, who draws that zoning map and changes it?
You mean when we redo the map?
Yeah.
Well, it used to be, I have 4 or 5 layers of maps in my office, and I got notes on every one of them. And then about once a year, we would upgrade them. And when I first started, we had maps everywhere in glass, and then Campbell Johnson would print them out for us. And then they would change the color coding accordingly. But now we have it electronically on our city website, and you can go in and punch up our city map, and you can identify which layers you want. Zoning is one of them. So if you're in the real estate agents and things are starting to get aware of this, and we're trying to get the information out there to the public, save me a lot of time. If somebody can go online, look at a property, and know what the zoning is, because they'll ask me, they'll call me and ask me. But the problem with a printed out map, as soon as the first zoning change comes along, it's obsolete. So that, you just got to keep making notes. And then when people call before, they'd ask you what the zoning was. I get questions all the time from appraisers all over, clear from Wichita. They're appraising properties here, and they want to know what the zoning is, if it's illegal, non-conforming use, or that kind of thing. And I try to direct them to our maps, but sometimes those can get pretty complicated because there's future land use layers, there's zoning layers, there's a lot of layers that pop up. If you don't know how to manipulate it, sometimes it gets confusing.
So you go in and actually change a map electronically?
Yes, which I haven't done the last 2 or 3 times. Jeez, I need to get that upgraded. But
I didn't know whether Campbell and Johnson had to do it or whether.
No,
And
that's
who paid for it?
Yeah,
So-
we pay for that map service, and then it's actually a pretty good service. They got lots of, the problem I have with it is the picture is the first one. And it's 5, 6, 7 years old. The county website, which is similar, they update their pictures every 6 months, I think. So you can get a more accurate representation of what's on the ground at the time. I've got buildings on our map now that have been gone for 3 or 4 years. So without extra fees, you can't have that done at the time. We've been talking about, Ronnie and I've talked about partnering with the county on that, so we don't have to, we're paying for a service, they're paying for a service, and we can almost get all the same information off that same service from each other. We get 2 entities are paying for it. They can get a little more than we can get a little more than they can, but we figure out how to combine them. And everybody countywide can use them and decide how they want. But the city is different. It's incorporated in the county. So.
I move to approve ordinance 2021-3176. Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Hash, second by Commissioner Wentz to approve ordinance 2021-3176, the zoning change for 322 West Fifth. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to the Cunningham conditional use permit, ordinance 2021-3177.
Mayor and Commissioners, as you know, we've been working on this one for a while with Cunningham Communications, and part of it was a vacation of a Lawn Street right away, which we did a while back, and then this is the final step which requires, this is real similar to the zoning change. It requires a 14-day protest period. That's why I couldn't bring it to you until now. The same information is there as which is on the lot split and the planning commission minutes. Everything's been entered in the record. There was no protest. So the conditional use has just got two conditions. And it's required as part of the R3 zoning, and everything kind of working out pretty well. But this will be the last step before they can get their building permit to expand on those operations.
Any questions?
Move to approve ordinance 2021-3177.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Hash to approve ordinance 2021-3177. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to ordinance 2021-3178, contractor license.
Mayor, Commissioners, general contractor licensing ordinance before you. It's been a culmination of actually years of trial and error and procrastination in some cases, and different management levels and different input. And this is, the last few years, it got a little more intense and a little more involved. And I think the mentality's coming around a little bit. I believe this is a good thing for the contracting community. We've had MEP licensing in place for years now. It's worked out pretty good. We get education out there and a little more code compliance, I believe. Amy asked me to put together a brief kind of timeline of what we did. So I went clear back basically once we started, but I got just a little bit. I'd like to briefly go through what the Board of Building Trades have done over the years. And this is real brief, but some of the high points. In 2000, when I came to work for the city and was hired as the first building inspector, that was actually a position created. We established the Board of Building Trades as a kind of a quasi advisory board to me and to the community. And we started right away meeting twice a month for about 2 years. And we talked about adopting building codes, updating building codes, contractor licensing, general contractor licensing. And we immediately went to work on them. In about 2003, we adopted the first set of building codes that the city had had since 1951, which only required building permits for the fire district, which was basically downtown and the highway. And in 1987, they adopted the 87 NEC, and there was no plumbing or HVAC codes around. At that time, licensing was required for electrical. It was come about 1987, the minimum standard was 60% passive during the test to become an electrical contractor. In 2007, we had many meetings on codes and MEP licensing, and we finally adopted, when I say MEP, I mean mechanical, electrical, and plumbing licensing. Electrical, plumbing, and HVAC licensing was adopted. In the next couple of years, we went through those and upgraded and tweaked areas were of concern, and constantly worked on more and more information for contractors. In about 2010, a couple of contractors approached the Board of Building Trades requesting that we look into general contractor licensing as we did with MEPs. I will say that the first general contractor on the board, one of his goals from the very beginning was to get general contractor licensed. He didn't like the fact that he was out there bidding against people that didn't have insurance on their people and didn't know what they were doing, basically. That was the complaint at the time, and it's still a very viable concern in some areas. At that time, we looked at it a little more. We worked on some scenarios. Various things happened, floodplain mapping hit, and it took up a lot of my time. And we resumed discussions in 2017, and we started inviting contractors, and contractors had a bit of input here and there. They come in full force in 2017 at a September meeting, and we had a lot of discussions. At that time, we kind of left it feeling like we're just starting out with registration, but we thought within a couple of years we would morph into actual licensing. The more you look at it, the more you try to break it down, it just makes sense to just go right to the licensing and create a healthy grandfathering period that will allow all the local guys, local people to have their opportunity to come in and get their license. And then the only requirement from there would be the fees, the insurance, and the continuing education to renew. And just as I suspect with MEP licensing, we have a lot of grandfathering in for people that were in business in those trades for years, but never had any really certifications or anything. And we had a grandfathering period. I expect we will get a fair and perhaps large amount of people wanting to be a part of this. And as the years go by and they realize that it's really not their deal because they have to keep up with continuing ed, or they just, the guy that just does the once in a while job, like the electrician that does the once in a while electrical wiring, they will eventually fade away or get more educated and become more involved. That's been my experience. So we think long run, this will be a good thing for the community. We'll get safer buildings, more educated contractors, and keep up with modern technology, modern techniques, and modern tools, everything. It's such a dynamic industry anymore. The materials that come out are so hard to keep up with. And if you don't use that new product correctly, you could be in a serious violation of code. Just that alone, I think, is helpful for contractors to have that kind of information and resources. And it can always come through me or through our department. I'll stand for any questions. If there are any points on this,
You talked a little bit about the most recent, about the last year and a half or so, inviting the contractors in the public hearing, having all that.
yeah, we actually, Amy drew up the first draft ordinance, and then we tweaked on it a little bit and kicked around different scenarios over a few months with the Board of Building Trades, and then we decided to go live with it, and then the contracts were involved. We did have a public hearing on it. Those were delayed for various reasons, three times. And then the last public hearing, when it was finally a real public hearing where people were involved, we had a few attend on Zoom. It was an extremely bitter cold day that day. And, but we still had, 9 contractors in the room, and I think 2 or 3 online. And there was a couple of questions, and we kicked about some things, but like with any major change like this, it doesn't matter how much we've done before. I know there's going to be some scenarios pop up that we never thought of, and you can kick them around and think it to death, but at some point you got to get something out there. The contractors know it's coming. They're ready for it. We have a extremely good, I think, information packet for them that we've developed, and hand them out, public, anything. We send them out. We can email them now. From the time I started to now, there's only a few contractors out there that are defiant about email and getting that kind of information. Where you have to actually hand it to them, they have to come pick it up. A lot of them get it now when you email it to them. They ask and they return things. So we'll be setting up information for that. There'll be information online, and we're hoping to get to the point where we can do fillable forms on everything, including this. And continuing education, you get up to half of it by attending board building trades meeting. We're expecting to start working on our next code cycle, which will be 2018 code. We'll probably go back to, we decided to just meet once every 2 months. So I don't know how it's gonna work out, but contractors can get up to half their education by attending those meetings. And the other half would be somewhere else. And the online education has exploded since COVID. 2 years ago, a contractor had a very difficult time getting online continuing education that would be approved by most communities. Now there are literally tens of 20s, if not hundreds of sites where you can go get continuing education for all kinds of prices. And for contractors as well, as it takes specific things. You know, you gotta have a camera, you gotta sit there, you can't turn your computer on and walk away. I've taken a lot of those over the years because it was always available. It's been available for inspectors for years. And if you're not paying attention, you fall asleep or walk away, and you're not there to prompt that thing when they ask you to prompt, then you get kicked out. You get credit for what you were there, but you have to re-sign back on, sign up pretty quick if you want credit for that whole thing. Any questions about any of this? Any concerns about procedures?
I have a few. So on section 4412, it talks, especially section 2 under that, it talks about, I think this does, can you talk to us about how this changes people who own rental properties, what they can do on, what type of work they can perform on their own rental properties?
Most work that doesn't require a permit, if it requires a permit, now they can do a lot of cosmetic work.
Right.
And repair work. You can change still to this day, and that's been protected by state law. You can change devices, you can change, you know, receptacles, switches, light fixtures, things like that without a license or without permits. You can build a fence with a permit, but you don't have to require a license. That's one of the things we talked about. But with all rental units, no, unless you're the owner and of a single family dwelling and the occupant, you should be hiring licensed contractors to do your work. Unless it's work that doesn't require a permit. We fought this for years with landlords on electrical and stuff. You know, you go into a property, inspect a furnace at a licensed contractor, then you see a bunch of wiring that was done by somebody that didn't know what they were doing.
Sure, but specifically for this, I guess, when you have, you know, say you own rental properties and you have crews coming, you know, you have a certain crew, maybe you own properties in Clay Center, or have you worked with maybe some reciprocity agreements with Clay Center and Salina and some of the surround, like how does this fit in? Can they
This works
automatically?
the same as MEP licensing. It's formatted after the state guidelines. And the state guidelines have the 3 areas, the 3 levels of contractor licensing, A, B, and C, unlimited. And if you follow those guidelines with your continuing ed, just as with electrical, mechanical, and plumbing, those qualifications are reciprocal now with other communities that have that same requirement. Now, each community still has the home rule advantage of tweaking it a little bit. So when you go to another community, you always want to ask and find out what their requirements and rules are, because there's a possibility that could be a little bit different. But if I'm a licensed B contractor and I'm certified, tested, that's the key. The grandfathered people, every community has their own right to accept whoever they want. If I'm certified, tested, they can't deny me. I still have to pay their local fees and stuff if I want to get a contractor license. But if I'm certified, tested, they can't take that away from me. But if I'm grandfathered in another community, it's the community I'm going to's choice to, if that's qualification is reciprocal or not. In most cases, it will not be. So what you have is sometimes you'll get contractors coming from smaller communities, other communities that don't have requirements, and then from there, it's just an educational process. You gotta go stop the job, you gotta let them inform them what's going on, and I'm sure at first there's gonna be some headaches with it, because somebody's gonna have to stop work and go hire a contractor to come in and, you know, maybe work under them or something like that, but it can be an issue with reciprocity.
And my concern with this has been, you know, if you have the one guy who has made a conscious choice not to add other employees on in order to keep his costs down, and you know, how do all of these fees stack up? I know you said there are fee, of course, the $50 fee, and then having insurance. How much is? You said there's a range, but I mean, how much is education per hour? Do you know?
It can vary from free to about, the high end ones are $25 to $30 an hour. The low ones maybe $10 an hour. And there are some things, if, for instance, Johnson County contractor license has an excellent licensing program. They have contracts with 11 or 12 different other counties, some in Missouri. They have a $250 licensing fee for any license you got with them. With that, you get 3 days of free continuing education from them for your license renewal, and a free code book every time you take one of their classes. It's a pretty good deal for $250 a year if you want to go that route. And that's Johnson County licenses is probably stricter than anybody else's, so it's reciprocal just about everywhere. But for the one-man shop, it's no different than, there's a few one-man shops that we still have grandfathered in electrical, plumbing, and mechanical that have all three. So they're required 6 hours in each trade. Some of those can cross trade, but the burden's still there. And, you know, a lot of them will come to my meetings a few times because they need a couple hours, but there's, with the explosion of online continuing ed, it's very reasonable cost to get continuing education.
So if you're a crew that has maybe 6 guys under you, only one person in there.
The qualified individual, you're allowed 1, but no more than 2.
Okay.
2 we did for the person who, the sons, you know, the so-and-so contractor and son, or so-and-so, maybe their partners, their wife or something. They can have 2 qualified in case something would happen to that first grandfathered in qualified individual. But both of those have to keep their continuing ed up.
And then do you have to have one of those people on site with somebody who doesn't at all times?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
That's always a judgment call. It's just like with the electrical, plumbing, mechanical. They're supposed to, apprentices are supposed to be supervised on the job by a journeyman or a master, but in some cases, you know, contracts get so spread out. I get a call from an apprentice, you know, the apprentice doesn't have a clue what's going on, so you got to call the company owner or whatever, and they may know or may not, or, you know, it's just some of the things you kind of deal with. But the main thing is you can't let that get out of control. You know, I've had in it, but it's mostly with, they say it this way, but out of town contractors that are doing big projects, they're the ones that seem to be the biggest violators of that, or just, I attribute it to just they don't know. But I'll get somebody that comes from Wichita, and the master, the only master in the company's been up here twice on the job, but the journeyman and the apprentices are the one actually doing the job. In some cases, there's contractors, big contractors, that their apprentices are run the show. They're the most knowledgeable, they're better leaders, but they just never have taken the test. So there's all kinds of scenarios that can happen with that kind of thing, that you just kind of deal with them as they come along and see what happens.
Yeah, I guess so. Just to very clearly clarify, this isn't really changing things for people who own rental properties from
Not
what they're
really.
used to? It's not.
Not really.
They've been working under this.
Oh, well,
They
yeah,
should-
so I'm sorry.
They should have been, but I think this is where, object just for a second, please. I, as with most things, I'm conflicted, have different points of view. I think one of the reasons I think it's so important for this to happen is that there's been a significant amount of work that's been done in rental properties that did require a permit that was not performed appropriately. And I think as a result of that, we have an unfortunate amount of rental properties that frankly don't meet code because work has been done. Well, this is my room, I can do whatever I need to. And so I think that's what helps support the need for this licensing. I also feel like a person should be able to take care of their things without that. But yeah, so a person who owns a rental property is doing work that should require a permit, but maybe hasn't. And that's part of, I think, why we are pushing for this.
But if it's been in place already and they still aren't getting permits, does this?
That's a good question. I want to reiterate back to your original question about what this changes for the rental property owner, because it does actually change, because the rental property owner in the past could come and get a permit to build a wall in his rental property or whatever,
Right.
and act as a general contractor as long as they hired and, the subcontractor to do the electrical, plumbing, HVAC that was required.
Yes.
Or they could just go work, like I said, a lot of cosmetic, a lot of things that can be done without a permit, and rental owner or whoever can go in and do that. There was a lot of that done without permits, without code and things like that. The difference now will be they would have to hire a contractor for those things that do require a permit.
Like building a wall.
Yes, certain types of walls require permits.
Well, they would,
Basically any alteration that's not a cosmetic alteration.
they also have the opportunity to apply for the
They
contractor's
also,
license.
I expect a couple of realtors and a few rental property owners to be in here getting their general contractor's license.
So I probably said, I grew up in a real estate family. My father had a contracting license simply because he did the majority
Maintenance
of,
on these rentals.
right, the majority of the contracting.
I've got real estate agents, real estate owners that are rental owner property, they're asking me about that, and I expect that to happen.
One of the things that I would like to see would be for the city of Concordia to offer, in addition to attending the building trades meetings, some sort of annual education opportunity that I think really would help, one, be a networking opportunity. I imagine that most of the folks in the contracting world in Concordia are pretty familiar with each other as it is, but also maybe some of the real estate folks to come in and be able to have that. So what are you looking for? Be able to, I can attend a class at Johnson County and learn code and take the test. But what I think is more helpful is being able to have that educational opportunity where I know what you're looking for, the things that you're looking for. Yeah, you can do it any which way, but I really like to see it like this. This is really what it should be. And I think that if we're going to ask people to do this, which I think is okay to do, I also want to provide them ample opportunity to fulfill those obligations. If nothing else, to take away an excuse that, well, I can't do this, I can't afford it, I can't be here. That we're providing a part of that in addition to our.
That's actually been a discussion for years. When we started MEP licensing, that was one of the complaints I got. If we're gonna require licensing, how come we can't get a local continuing education? So that's when we started the policy of attending meetings to get some of your education.
Mhm.
But we didn't want to have to provide all of it. And we're doing the same thing with general contractors. The beauty of what's coming, I think, if it works out, when we start reviewing the 2018 code, there's a perfect opportunity for the general contractors to come in and have their say. We can decide what needs, there's a whole list of what requires permits and what's exempt. And in the building code, fences are always exempt from permits, but our zoning requirements say you get a permit to build a fence. That's a local requirement, it's not a building. So we have to adjust those things. And we usually, last time we went through codes, we spent 1.5 years going through 6 or 8 code books, and we're talking about adding a couple more code books this year. And it takes time and effort. And last time we did it, when we went through the electrical code, we had I thought a fair amount. We had 2 or 3 or 4 different electricians come in at 2 or 3 different meetings and have their say. And they actually changed the code. Code requires arc faults now everywhere on residential. That's not DFCI protected. They nixed that out there and kept it just in the bedroom circuits, but they didn't have a problem with tamper-resistant receptacles everywhere. So we left that in the code. So the participation is important to get that local information.
So Bruno, would it be fair to say that yes, we want to be able to provide those opportunities locally. We recognize that need for here, and probably over the next couple of years, we want those local opportunities to be at the Board of Building Trades, so they can go through the code cycles to know what we want locally. But after that, we'd still continue to look for some opportunities to bring local on-site continuing education. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, it's, educators are hard to come by for small communities because they want so many participants so that they feel like they're making their money, you know, and then a lot of times they'll want travel expenses or things like that.
What's required for, say, a building inspector to be able to offer continuing education, become certified to provide continuing education?
I've explored that more than once, and the International Code Council is always bugging people to be an educator. In fact, if you go to a class, on their review sheet, it says, are you interested in being an educator? Because they want you. And I've never signed that because I know as soon as I do, they're going to start calling me and bugging me and wanting me to go to class. And I feel like I can't commit to that because it takes too much away from here. Because once you become certified, and you know, there's no certifications, just based on experience, and can you teach by their format? And I've talked to many educators that do ICC certified classes. The problem is once they get a hold of you, they want you everywhere. They want you to Texas, they want you California, they'll fly you everywhere to educate, and they'll make money off of it, and you'll make money off of it. We're talking about 200-300 up to 2,000 people in the class, and I just am not going to commit myself.
Word on the street is that once you form an opinion on something, you can be hard to sway from that. So that if you hold steadfast to just dedicating that effort locally, then you have the potential to stand your ground. I mean, that's what I've never had that experience.
That's my thinking at this time.
Okay.
And I know if I commit, you know, Johnson County, they're going to start up again, I think, probably in the fall this year, depending on what happens with COVID. But I used to get a lot of free continuing education from them, from being a board member of the Heart of America chapter. And they have some excellent continuing ed, and they have a lot of participants, but you have to go there for 3 days. You know, and I've actually lost some continuing education because I stand out in the lobby dealing with something back here for 2 hours, you know, permit issue or whatever, you know, a fire output out or whatever. That's just part of the deal. The continuing education is not going to be as difficult as what people think. To me, there's contractors I'd like to say, you need to take a deck building class. And you'll be enlightened, you know, and that's what I'm gonna start doing, is hopefully suggesting classes they can take, which you gotta be careful with, because you don't want to insult anybody, but you know, back when I started in the trade, I went through a 9-month trade program, and when I came out, I was light years ahead of guys that had been in the business 3 or 4 years and never had. Self-taught from people who were self-taught is not a good formula for future ability in Concordia. And that's what I've seen it migrate to. From 1978, when I graduated Tech in Beloit, I built houses around here in Beloit, and I went to Alaska, but I believe that it needs to happen. Some form or another.
I think Ashley asked one before I had.
Yeah, I guess I'm just commenting on the way out. I have some concerns that this might push out the little guy. And I've had some like little guys that this has maybe got their hair up a little bit. And I'm worried that that means that's an increase in costs to then their customers. You know, we kind of set out at the beginning of the year as one of our priorities is that we can help people grow from within, and regulating them more is a concern to me. Mostly the education portion, just because if you are a little guy and you've chosen to be that, taking off time to go do continuing ed. And from what I understand, probably their experience has been pre-COVID, and post-COVID, there's gonna be some more opportunities, and I hope there are. And if we have some here, that would be good. But pre-COVID, I understand the classes would fill up quick, or you'd have to travel. And when these guys are spread so thin, it's hard to commit to going to your meetings in the evenings. It's, when they only have so many hours in a day. And I think it unfairly punishes them when you can have 10 guys working under you and, they're working during the day, so maybe you can go take continuing ed. I don't know,
The little guy isn't gonna have 10 guys working under him.
right, no, I'm
And the
saying
little
that
guy,
the big guy can go and let his employees work,
correct.
and he can just get the continuing ed. Well, I mean, you got someone working on your house that hasn't been through the ed, and that's okay, because their boss has. And then you're making the guy working on your house who doesn't have any other employees, he's also gotta work on your house, plus go to continuing ed. So I feel like it's a bit of, I think if we just did maybe the registering people and requiring insurance for sure, and I even think $50,000 is kind of low. I mean,
That's the state minimum for tort claims.
sure, oh geez.
And some people,
Yeah.
and that doesn't knock out the little guy. The little guy is just more of a handyman, but he wants to pull a permit every once in a while
Yeah.
because they got a build, he wants to build a wall on a kitchen remodel, or they want to knock out a wall on a kitchen remodel, and put a header up or something. That guy has you're talking 2 days out of your year, $50 out of your bank account to have a license.
And how much, there's a book, right, that goes along with it too, is there to take how much are the books and how often do
They
they
could
have to
be,
buy them?
yeah, we get them through a discount for being a member, but yeah, the standard code book's about $100, but if you buy the whole package, there's several code books.
Yeah.
But the 90% of the contractors are gonna be looking at that residential code, and
Yeah.
it covers everything. That's one deal for 1 and 2 family dwelling. But the little guy sometimes, I'll remind you that when we started MEP licensing, there were a lot of one-man shops that had 3 licenses.
Mhm.
And they had to get 12 hours every 2 years for each license. And they were able to do it. And they continued on. Some of them went away, some of them grew, some of them had employees. But I think I got a lot of grief about that. And by God, we gotta go get these classes, and I passed my test and blah, 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 blah. But then after a few classes have been attended over a few years' time, there started becoming positive feedback from what they learned at that class, or what dummy asked some dumb question at that class, So you start to get feedback on that. And I think once people start going and getting that, even if it's online, that's when I start getting questions, or, hey, I learned this in class, but that's not the way you say it. To me, engagement is the ultimate education. You got to get people engaged and get them asking questions, talking about it. And I tell them, don't hesitate to tell me I'm wrong if you think I'm wrong. We'll go figure it out. So, I think this is actually more helpful to the small guy. One of the biggest complaints about this when we started licensing in 2000, when they started talking about it, was bidding against people that weren't going to do the job right and weren't insured.
Right.
And some of them even have employees. And part of this will help even that out. Now I don't care what you do, you can never get it all. And for every rule you make, you got to think about enforcement. It's always an issue too.
One thing with this continuing ed, I've been doing this for 34 years. Went and took my tests 5 years ago and started doing continuing ed. And I couldn't believe how little I knew about what I was doing. So even though 6 hours a year, spent like three hours you have to pay for, $150. You can't make up $150 learning what you're doing. You probably shouldn't be doing it anyway.
Well, by the way, this is James Reynolds. JR and Son General Contractor, and he's the general contractor representative on our board of
feel like that's why I think, because we do believe that the education is vital to having a quality product. And then not having a quality product isn't just having a shoddy product, but it's really more a danger, right, for the inhabitants of that space. So since we do value education, I guess I just want to participate in being a resource for that and then helping people understand why. There's not, ultimately, there's not a lot of occupations that don't require some degree of continuing education. And that's a part of what we try to sort out. And
I will say, I think we have a better opportunity than we ever had since Eric Boss has come on board, because he has a training room that they do a lot of continuing education out of, and they're set up for it. And I hope to be able to take advantage of some of his resources where we can actually have a class, bring in an educator and advertise it, because we've done that before. That we've actually had some local contractors bring in educators for their own crew to learn about a new product or whatever. And that counts as continuing ed, but they open it up to other people. So, and we've had people come from Salina because they needed a couple hours to get their license in Salina, and they knew, and the class may have been cheaper here than it was in Salina or something, or they just happened to miss it. So the opportunities will be there, and eventually I hope to be at least a speck of what Eric's doing right now with his education. There's all kinds of opportunities for getting people, high school. There's a high school technical training program that ICC has, and it's to get high school kids interested in the trades on the technical side of it, the building code side of it. Why do you build something like this? Why do you put 2 nails in a stud instead of 1? That kind of thing. And they get a little certification with it, $110, and they get a code book. And I've always wanted to get that. We got a guy from our Heart of America chapter that's been running around to these different communities and promoting that. But it's one of those things that just, if you're going to start committing to it, then it's going to start eating up your time like that for the next few months until you get it rolling. But there's all kinds of things that I'd like to do to get the young people motivated that way. I used to get invited to classes at the high school, and I don't know why, but that went away. To talk about zoning and talk about, take kids' questions about building codes and building trades and things like that. But they quit inviting me.
They didn't have a 5-hour class, but.
I was going to refrain from making.
Sorry.
Is my 3 minutes up?
I'd have rang the bell on you a long time ago.
The hope would be that this doesn't necessarily hinder a small business. That's the hope. The reality is that.
I guess my other fear would be on maybe just for folks who have, a slew of rentals and have always done their own work or has a crew that does the work, that they just won't do the work, and do we see properties decline or do we see them go up? I guess we're not there now.
You could talk about the property on Matthew that we tore down.
Good Lord.
How they messed up the electrical so bad.
That was the one that you and I had to work over.
Sure, but they had to have a permit you
Well,
had to have you have to have your electrical permit in to do that. So I'm talking like building a wall or that they can do right now, right, without like being licensed.
And the problem will be getting them, the ones that did it on their own without a license, without a permit. Getting them to realize they need it, or they'll keep doing it anyway.
I think that's what the people I want to protect are ultimately the ones that will most likely move forward with the process to do it the right way. And the ones who would benefit from safeguarding or not moving forward with this would be the ones that would take advantage of that leniency and perhaps not do a quality job. And so I think that's where I don't want to add regulation, but the ones that are going to do the job right will move forward with regulation because it's the right way to do it. And the ones who aren't going to follow it anyway, are still not going to follow it anyway. I guess that's the con.
And there'll be more consequences basically for those that choose not to follow the rules. I was thinking about the goal of growth from within, and it's my hope this does promote growth from within, growth in education, growth in safety, and growth hopefully in more value for the community in that way. I can understand that there might be some concerns for people. Change is hard, and it's hard to give up time when you could be making money to better yourself professional development wise. Hopefully in the long run, that does end up making you more money. You get more jobs, your reputation improves. The quality of, if you are a rental owner and you're doing high quality work and you're learning more about the codes and your buildings are safer, then hopefully the improvements that you make end up lasting longer. Hopefully the renters that you get appreciate the work that you're doing and encourage more people to rent from you, and that grows your business as well. So I see that from a positive standpoint. And I would hope that if it has any questions, I know Bruno's filled in a lot of questions. I know the board really creates has filled in a lot of questions. You guys are obviously getting a lot of questions. I hope people would continue to ask the questions to learn more about what we're doing. We'll do our best to promote it. We'll do our best to put as much information out on our website to talk about it as much as possible. If there's more that you think that we need to do to promote it as far as the whys, I know Bruno's created a very good frequently asked question sheet that really answers a lot of those questions. Send those our way so we can help people understand.
Questions from Bruno? At this point, I would entertain a motion if anyone cares to make.
I move to approve ordinance 2021-3178.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Hash and seconded by Commissioner Wentz to approve ordinance 2021-3178. Is there further discussion? Thoughts before we have this vote? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1.
I will change your mind, Ashley.
Oh, I welcome it.
Thank you.
Moving on to construction, engineering, inspection services, US Highway 81 project.
Mayor and Commissioners, this is an agreement for construction engineering services for the project south out here on 81 Highway from South City Limits back to North College Drive. And the agreement is between the state, the city of Concordia, and Campbell and Johnson. This to be paid 90% by the state, 10% by the city. I could answer some questions.
Ready to get this?
Hi, yeah. I just drove over that today.
Bounced over.
Yeah.
Ron, did you say that because of how bad that section is and because the left-hand lane has been so heavily trafficked that they're going to be looking at combining that effort or seeing if they could stabilize both lanes in some way, or?
I'm probably gonna try and do a change order during the project, right there in the intersection where it is getting bad. And we do have an intersection. That traffic's actually, we're gonna be shoving a clear over to the, like the center lane there. And running it down until we almost get to where the highway divides and then bring it back over. I'd be running traffic on that shoulder out there during project time. It's gonna be a complicated project because of the intersection. We're gonna do maybe half of it at a time. back here and go to the other side. So, it's a short project, it's only 45 days.
Okay, motion.
I move to approve the mayor to sign the agreement for federal aid construction, engineering, and inspection services between the state, city of Concordia, and Campbell and Johnson.
Second,
It's been moved by Commissioner Hutchinson and seconded by Commissioner Hash to approve me to sign, the mayor to sign agreement for federal aid construction, engineering, and inspection services between the state, city of Concordia, Campbell and Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Moving on to the manager's report. Amy?
Here, Commissioners, we've got several things to share with you this evening. First, a couple of legislative updates. Senate Bill 40 passed this week. It has to do with the Kansas Emergency Management Act. Looks like it's anticipated to be signed by the governor, and there are a few changes. One of the notable changes to note tonight is that the state of disaster declaration has been extended through May 28th. It was originally supposed to expire March 31st. Beyond that, we're still trying to figure out how it would directly impact us and what changes would impact us. The other one is the American Rescue Plan that was passed at the federal level. I believe this past weekend. My days are kind of running together. We know that there's some funding that will come directly to counties, some funding that will come directly to municipalities. For us, because we're below a population of 50,000, our money will flow through the state. So we're probably about 90 days out before we get that. We've heard estimates of what that amount might be, but we haven't seen anything definite. We have seen the language of the bill, but we're still waiting for guidance from the Treasury to figure out exactly how we can spend that, what those eligible expenses are. They're supposed to be more broad, but on the surface they appear to be broad, but in application they appear to be more narrow. So we can certainly find ways to accelerate needs that we have on the books, possibly with some of those uses. So we'll have more information as that progresses. The downtown speaker system, I believe you asked about that last week. So we did have some training with Kirby today on how to operate the system. We have a little bit of troubleshooting to go through. As with other electronics, when the power goes out for an extended amount of time, you have to reboot, reset things. We need to go out to some of the speakers and physically reboot those, do a power reset on some of those to get them working. But some of them should have been working today. And we have some better ideas of how to operate that system. So we are excited to get it back up and going for this spring. Update on the natural gas emergency from February. The legislature did act quickly and create a loan program for municipalities, a low interest loan program for those that needed help to pay their bills. We did not have to participate in that because our reserve is healthy, so we're able to float those costs. We have reached out to both KDOT and the jail to offer assistance to them if they need in some way a payment plan. They haven't really responded yet. They haven't got their bill from us yet. We haven't got our bill from KMGA yet. We know that our estimate is about $33,000 for that month. Normally it's around $1,100. So it did go up significantly, and we're thankful that we only have a small portion of that. So that's very good. That only a small portion of our city is impacted by that, if that makes sense. Kansas Gas is handling the rest of it for our residents and for our businesses. I think we've seen that bill. Our bill went up slightly, but not a huge amount. I think Kansas Gas is doing a good job of trying to level that out for their customers, which is great. We really appreciate that. As you can see from our growing pile of food back over here in the corner, we are doing another employee food drive. We did adjust it slightly this year as far as the incentive for employees to participate. Our goal is to do it for the good of the community. Typically, when you do something like this, it does require some incentive. So in the past, we've offered up for availability the opportunity to earn up to 24 hours of personal leave for 120 items. We've backed that down. You can get up to 16 hours of personal leave for up to 120 items, and we can do those in smaller increments too. Last year, I think we raised over 3,000 items, and we do give the opportunity for people to get a cash equivalent instead. So 120 items or $120. Cash that's given is then converted into perishable food items or more expensive items that the food bank also needs. And I think last year we also had about 60% participation. So, and that's been pretty consistent over the last couple of years. So we anticipate that. We'd love to see an increase, but we recognize that people can choose to give, or they may give in other ways as well. Then the last thing is the annual citywide cleanup. I know we've had several questions about it, if we're going to be doing that or not. And we kind of finalized plans this morning during department head meeting, and we'll be moving forward. Cleanup weekend, the weekend that we encourage people to kind of finish their spring cleanup and getting ready, is the weekend of April 17th and 18th. And our trucks will begin running the morning 8 a.m. of the 19th of April 19th. So we're asking all residents to put their items out at the curb by 8 a.m. the morning of April 19th to guarantee pickup. So we did not do a cleanup last year. We anticipate this will be big. In 2019, we did cleanup. Recall it took us about 3.5 weeks to finish that. So it did take a long time. But our goal is to encourage people to take pride in their properties, to clean up their properties, to make our beautiful town more visibly beautiful, if that makes sense. And spring is a great opportunity to do that. So we'll be getting out some information about that. Again, cleanup weekend, April 17th and 18th. Trucks will begin rolling April 19th at 8 a.m. So we want everybody to put their items out by the curb then. And we'll be getting more information out. That's all I have for you. Do you have any questions for me?
About the cleanup, questions always surround furniture and tires.
We talked about several options. We've really toyed and really seriously considered doing a centralized tire location pickup. And the reason that we did that was because last year, or 2 years ago, we did have a lot of trouble with people bringing in tires and dropping them in people's front yards. A lot of times after the crews had already been through to pick up the tires. And so it created some challenges. But we decided that one of the reasons that we're picking up tires is to get rid of potential mosquito harbors, and we're trying to help those that cannot transport those. So we decided it wouldn't make any sense to go ahead and pick up everything else at the curb and make people transport their own tires. We also know that people don't always follow directions, and so when we try to change things on them, they may not follow directions, and the tires still may end up at the curb. So we said leave everything the same. So tires will still be out there, furniture, appliances, and tree limbs, not large trees. So we don't want people to be cutting down whole trees and cutting up chunks of tree in their yard. We won't take those. We will take the branches.
But they will pick up furniture then.
Yes, yes. And we do ask people to separate the items at the curb. That really helps us out, especially the way that we have to pick it up. The different items have to go in different dump trucks because they have to go to different locations. If they're not separated, the whole process is going to take our crews a lot longer to get through town because they have to separate them before they put them into trucks. We do recognize that we have some folks that like to go explore things on the curb, kind of like garage sale style, and sometimes that results in items getting jumbled back together. So we're really requesting assistance from property owners to make sure that their items stay separated for us. That really helps us out. Any other questions?
No, I know how many trees we saw last time, and it was really frustrating because I think if you have the capacity to bring down a tree, then you should have the capacity to move that tree on. This is not a tree removal service. This is really an effort for cleaning up. And I think if the citizens of Concordia want to continue to have this opportunity, and I think it's a fantastic one, we really need to work to be good stewards of that and to try to sort, make sure that we're putting things in appropriate piles and we're not overwhelming a system if we can take care of things ourselves.
We have a lot of great landscaping contractors here in town, and a lot of great tree removal people, private business. So we love people to support those businesses if they need that much work done. This is the goal, to get the limbs out of the way so that they're not overhanging the sidewalk too low, so they're not blocking stop signs and street signs.
Staff reports.
I'll give you just a quick update what happened last Wednesday at Jamestown. Was paged out about 9 o'clock in the morning for a fire. They called for rural and us about 9:30 that day. When we got out there, Jamestown Fire asked me to take over command. So I was in charge of it for about 19 hours. We ended up having about 26 departments. I don't know how many personal people and private companies came in, but we want to thank everyone. We had about 76 fire personnel on scene, which included Kansas Forestry brought in a team. Wichita sent up one of their strike teams that's contracted with the state. And for the first time, Cloud County District brought in Air Tanker 95, was doing bid live tanker drives out there. So we were busy with that for about 19 hours, and then we turned it back over to Jamestown. And finally, it was declared out Monday, just because of the trees and the rain. They want to make sure it's out, to still get the state assets if something happened. Out of it came a lot of the NIMS training we've been doing. That's how we managed it through the whole system. That's how we was able to get state aid. And I think we're going to be doing a lot more training with the rural departments on it.
No injuries.
No injuries and no structures last week. Had 2 of them really close to going, but some guys stood their ground and stayed in.
There's a lot of positive to the community, how well it was handled and stuff. So thank you. Eric, could you also give just a brief update on the racetrack stuff?
Racetrack, we've been working with them or trying to kind of figure out what they're doing. Past years, they've never brought in a schedule. Today, we still don't have a schedule that's officially been given to us. I know it's on their Facebook page. They owe us some money. My estimate next year with all the races, if they was to hold them all, it'd be about a $6,000 bill or more with the way our standby fees are right now.
Those are standard standby fees. I mean, that's what the school pays. That's what anybody else can pay. This is,
That's what's in the city ordinance.
yeah,
So do they charge to enter?
they do.
They do. Do they pay an employee at all? It's a nonprofit, right?
I believe so.
And do they have anybody on staff or is this just?
I think everyone's volunteer.
Okay.
And you went and spoke with the.
I did talk to the fair board because there are some concerns whether we'd still be working with them because they had an outstanding bill. I assured the fair board that we would be working with them. We need some guidance, I guess, from Amy or you guys, what we're gonna do this next year, where they have an outstanding bill. Usually we don't do a standby for them, and they have races coming up in like 2 or 3 weeks on their schedule on Facebook. Once again, they've not brought us anything the past 2 years, so that we will want them to actually bring in a copy. I don't think I should have to watch Facebook on when they're having races or not.
So that's how you knew to go, because you watched Facebook?
That, and I have a stepson that races down here from Nebraska.
So what would happen if nobody showed up? If you didn't go to, could they hold the,
It happened once, and they called down here, and we jumped through the hoops and got our crews out there to help.
huh,
So I feel like we should, I appreciate their effort. I know that racing is an important component for a lot of people. And I do believe, it sounds like these folks are trying, and maybe not quite as aware of everything that's involved with conducting it as they might be. So I guess in the spirit of education, trying to work with them, trying to see, that we can try to help you through this 2021 season, but if we're not, these are the sorts of things that we need to be seeing, whether that's a payment agreement or some sort of formal schedule that's achieved, that we may not be able to continue doing this into July and August if April and May, if we don't clear some of these things up. So it's not, I really don't want it to be a threat. I really want it to be an opportunity where we can encourage and support their development of the racetrack. It is a draw. There are some economic benefits to the community when people come into town. So there's some benefits that the community receives as a result of having activity at the racetrack. Also knowing that how can we support you but still have the outcome that we need, which is that bills need to be paid. And if they don't pay other vendors, you're not going to have opportunity either. So.
And they did, so the county fairgrounds is out in the county, but it's still within our territory, so we're supposed to be the primary ones that provide that service. They did bring in a partial payment today. Mayor Commissioners, are you guys supportive of us working with them on a payment plan for this year and making sure that we have a formal agreement in place that we can enforce in the event that it's needed to enforce it?
Amy, could you please send it to the community foundation and just get them on the, I mean, of course, if you're having events like that, bringing so many people into town, there are opportunities for, help, especially in a year after COVID, maybe they can get some assistance there. I was thinking if they had payroll, there's some opportunities, are they a shuttered venue? Probably not, maybe. I mean, there's plenty of money out there right now for.
Maybe just need somebody to walk them through the process.
I
I mean,
can,
I would need somebody to walk me through the process. I mean, it's not it's
And I don't want to
there.
volunteer you for that because you know how time consuming that is, but can they find someone, especially the fair board as well, versed on
The
applying?
thing about this is they contract with the fair board to use that ground.
Okay.
So the 2 people that were here today are their own independent people. So it'd be no different than you renting the commercial building to do something or have an auction.
So it's not even an
Concordia Highlands is its
organization.
own organization.
I don't think it's even a non-profit.
It's, okay,
I don't
never
know.
mind.
All I know
did you
is that
say you thought it was not a
I
nonprofit?
don't think so, because my understanding was when they came in and started this, they were trying to bring races back. I don't know how that is set up, but
no one has ever enlightened me on it, and I know they had talked, some people talked when they first were trying to do it, and they just wanted to come in and start racing, so I don't know if this is
So when we-
LLC or anything.
When we get back with them, we can share with them the opportunity the community foundation provides if they are set up to meet the community foundation criteria.
But
And
if
let them
not-
decide if they.
So maybe either the community foundation or Cloud Core, then if they're not a nonprofit, and that Kim could probably walk them through the business aspect of it and maybe some of the potential opportunities that are that way, but.
So Eric, when you have like events at the high school, do you have a contract for that?
Normally, the athletic director gets hold of us, gives us a schedule, this is when we want
So-
it, we send a bill out at the end of the season, and it's paid for.
Uh-huh.
They had a sticker shock, and I told them at the fair board meeting, the estimate, at 4 hours a race, for the number of races, it's gonna be over $6,000 this next year, because they have one every week. And it's gonna be hard for us to get crews out there every week.
Because you have to schedule extra employees, extra people on duty.
Because the 911 crew will not go out there, it will be an extra crew on duty. So on the same token, I know, then we're looking at possibly paying full-timers overtime to go out there and do this. So
So they knew the cost going into it. It wasn't a big surprise.
we had multiple conversations on the cost of it.
Well, and the fact that they don't give you the schedule, I mean, that's just to me, for planning.
For planning, yeah.
Myself and Megan watched their Facebook last year to make sure we had people scheduled.
Yeah, that
And like I
should
said,
be
we did
needed.
miss
No.
one of them, and they called us that morning, have said, we jumped through hoops and got a crew out there, but,
They can't start without a crew.
and they're supposed to stop if we have to leave.
So it
So-
really could benefit from some guidance and some clarification.
Coaching, it sounds like at the very least.
There was some lengthy discussion at the fair board with the fair board and them and me, because the fair board has not signed a lease agreement with them to even use the racetrack till we are satisfied with some kind of a plan with them. The fair board will not let them use the racetrack at all. So that's-
Well, I think in that plan, the fact that you need to know when those are, so, or it's gonna cost them more.
We will make sure that agreement is tight, all the expectations are outlined, and with this being their second year, this is the second year that they've worked with our EMS, the second year that they've had bills with us, they do know what's
This is
coming,
the third
they're,
This would be the.
right, they've had 2 years, so the contract will be enforced if the terms are not.
New business, and I think there can oftentimes be the dream, the idea, and the reality of running a business is often different than the idea I have of running a business. And so having some support in that effort, at least know that we've helped and offered that opportunity, whether people take advantage of that education or not is not within our control. But
Well, and the Cloud Corps has this small business.
Right.
Classes that are free to people in the county, so
And I don't know how that will work, because
They-
they are
they-
not from Cloud County.
I was gonna say they come from Minneapolis, don't they?
I don't know
Minneapolis,
how
so
that will
Lincoln.
work.
there's an opportunity, it is a money-making opportunity as with any offering. So they have other business owners that don't live in Clark County, that benefit from our business services or from our community foundation. Lots of resources that we have available to us.
Anything else? Good.
Other department heads? Staff reports? Commissioner comments?
I'll just reiterate that I heard a lot of positive about how the fire department all came together, the community came together to help out Jamestown. So, and I did write a note, but you'll have to forgive me, from the situation report on the maps, the 15th. It said in there that we were down 52% on cases. Again, forgive me, I don't know if it was Cloud County or the state of Kansas. on COVID. We're down 62% on the deaths and down by 35% on hospitalization. So I think we're going down, but to kind of answer your question from earlier, I knew I had a note, I just couldn't find it when you asked it. So anyways, that's all I have.
The only comment that I have, I guess a couple, I really am glad to see that we are doing a cleanup. I think that it really is an opportunity to take care of some of the blight in our area and just some of the, to help out folks who maybe need some help. Who I'm really talking to, because everybody here does some trouble, but they're listening. Their friends in the media can make sure to emphasize this and underline it, highlight it. That
Get your couch out of your yard.
that if we want to continue to have opportunities like this, we need to be good stewards of these opportunities. So I really hope that we don't take advantage of it, and then we use it for what it's for. Also, some parents, some mothers, dedicated mothers, certainly in our neighborhood area, have encouraged me. Wanted to first say thank you to Ron for putting out the speed sign out near Hood Park. I think it draws people's attention to it. Unfortunately, it does seem to have an alternate purpose in folks seeing how fast they can go. But I guess just a PSA, with the nicer weather, and thank God for nicer weather, today, being able to see kids going out to parks, playing in parks is so wonderful. It's really refreshing, but really would invite everyone to just be careful. There's a lot of kids out and about. I think as parents, we really work to try to help them understand looking before they go, but it's sometimes hard to gauge how fast a vehicle is going. So certainly would hate to see something happen because we're not being attentive in our parks and school areas. So hopefully everyone just slows down, take your time. Concordia is not that big of a city. There's really nowhere you can't get to in a few minutes. So plan accordingly. There's no reason you should be driving 45 miles an hour in your park. So at this point, I would entertain a motion for an executive session.
Move that the city commission recess into executive session to discuss employment personnel issues pursuant to the non-elected personnel matter exception KSA 754319B1 with the city commission only, and to reconvene in the city commission chamber at 7:07.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, a second by Commissioner Wentz to recess into executive session to discuss employment personnel issues pursuant to non-elected personnel matter exception KSA 754319B1, the city commission only, and to reconvene in the city commission chamber at 7:07 p.m. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
No lunch? I had no
I
lunch.
think that's out right now.
No action was taken. At this point, I would.
I move that we adjourn.
I was gonna wait. Chris is ready to go.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Hatch, second by Commissioner Wentz to adjourn. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned.